Good evening, everyone. Thanks for joining us tonight. I'm Megan. I'm here in Lee Summit at our Colburn Road Library Center with our great group of friends tonight. We have our host, Carmen Chopp of the Lenexa Public Market, and a panel that is going to knock your socks off. She will introduce all of them, so I will not take your time doing that. Couple of quick reminders. Take a minute if you're willing. Type your name in the comments. Let us know who you are, where you're watching from. If you have a food business, what is your food business? And then use those comments also throughout the panel discussion tonight. If you have questions, to put those in there. We want to make sure that you've made the time to be here, that we take the time to respond to your questions. That's why we're here. And we'll have a little survey at the end. We have to do that, right? Keep these public library programs free. So I'll post that link at the end. If you could take a couple of minutes, let us know your feedback. Let us know what kind of programming you'd like to see from us. Helps us keep doing this programming. And that's it for me. So I'm going to bring up Carmen. I'm going to get things rolling. Thanks for being here. We'll see you next time.
Hey, thank you, Megan. Okay, well, good evening and welcome, and thank you everybody for joining us tonight. Thanks, as Megan said, for taking time out of your night to be here and listen to us chat. I also want to thank in advance our panel guests that I'll introduce here in just a second. But we really hope that those of you that are listening in get something good out of this, get some good stuff to take away from the conversation. But as Megan said, we're here to answer your questions as well. So don't hesitate to pop those in the comment section and we'll address them, as they come up. Before we get started, I'm Carmen Chopp. As Megan said, I'm the manager of the Lenexa Public Market. We have been operating for about 4 years. I'm also a licensed attorney, a former retail manager, and I would consider myself to be a serial entrepreneur. My latest venture was a flavored nut company called These Nuts, which was a lot of fun. I'm mom to 4 girls, and when I'm not working, I read and I write and I stay active by running and working out. And I love to eat, which is probably why I have to stay active. So that's who I am. I'm your host this evening, but I want to actually, I'm going to kind of throw a curveball here. So tonight we're going to be talking about labor issues, from hiring and firing, some kind of nuts and bolts things, to motivating and leading, and then we'll talk about restaurant culture as well. But before I introduce our panel guests, I'd like to ask them what their hype song would be.
Oh man.
I know I sent you a list of questions. I know you all have prepared and have even done extra credit, but give us what your hype song was to get pumped for this.
A Whole New World from Aladdin would be great right about now.
Nice one.
That's a beautiful one, Matt. Mine's going a little darker. I used to always pump myself up to 9 Inch Nails. Had like a whole, so don't know.
Oh my gosh.
I'm gonna have to play us out with that one. So at the end, I'm gonna pull that out and play us out. Okay, Kate.
Do the Aladdin one instead.
Yeah, mine's dark too. I listen to this song every morning on the way to the market. I listen to Hayloft by Mother. It's just
What is it?
Hayloft by Mother.
Okay, I gotta look that one up. All right.
Please.
Okay, well, thank you.
Please don't play mine.
Okay, now that we know your hype song, we need to know a little bit more about you. So I want to start with Kate, which I could tell a million things about you because we work in the same area. Kate is the chef and owner of Kate Smith's Soiree at Butterfield's Bakery and Market here in the Lenexa Public Market. But Kate, tell us a little bit about yourself, other than that.
Yeah. Oh man. I am a young entrepreneur. I'm only 26. I got my degree at Oklahoma State University in hotel and restaurant administration, and I studied abroad during my time there, which is where I learned to make all these fun pastries and baked goods. And I am having my first child in November, which is crazy. So currently, 7 months pregnant and dealing with all of the crazy industry at the moment. So it's kind of a fun perspective on things. And I just love food. My parents had a restaurant. I knew that this was the industry that I wanted to be in. Everybody loves food. Everybody eats. No one is ever angry when they eat. Like, it's the opposite. So that's, I love that. So I studied abroad in Florence, Italy, and in Maastricht, Netherlands. And then I did my internship in Nanjing, China.
Wowza. One of the other things that I would add to that is that besides the fact that I'm way impressed that you're 26 and you do what you do, is really the fact that you opened a restaurant in the middle of COVID, and we'll talk a little bit more about that, when we talk about the questions. But like, that to me is like chutzpah, right? Like, I mean, that's so impressive to me. So anyway, thank you for accepting the invite to be on the panel.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah. Okay, Brian, you're a fellow attorney, owner of Outright HR. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, so employment attorney. I help a whole lot of small, medium-sized companies with culture and compliance. Being an attorney, maybe a little more focused on the compliance aspect, but have a couple restaurant and hospitality clients, and I've seen very different reactions to COVID responses and how those have played out, amongst other things. So in addition to that, I've worked at restaurants and bars before, so kind of have a little bit of insider knowledge for you. Although I wasn't a very good employee back in those days. Anyway, just love helping companies out. I mean, the HR landscape is pretty confusing nowadays and only getting more complicated. So, we're a solution to help with that.
Awesome. Well, we're glad you're here. I'm sure you're going to share some really good stuff for people.
Thanks for having me.
Matt, you're up. Matt Monge, where do I even start?
Unmute. Yes. After doing a million of these over the past year, right? We still can't always remember to unmute ourselves.
Right.
Because it's a whole new world. Yes.
Yeah.
There's the obligatory mention.
There's the tie-in right there.
Yeah. Help companies and brands differentiate and help people make a difference. That's why I get up in the morning. We do that through culture, leadership development, creative, and branding. Because my career has gone all over the place. Started out as a school teacher and ended up doing all this fun stuff. That's the short version.
Yeah. Just as an add to that, I asked Matt to join this panel because I personally have gotten, as someone who is in this industry, as a manager and a leader of a team, I've gotten a lot out of Matt's content. So if you haven't followed him on Instagram, I would definitely do that. He's inspired me, I would say, as a leader and a manager, and I've learned a lot from his content. Some of the things I think, you know instinctively, but it's great to have a reminder. And so that's what I get from Matt's content. So I'm glad you are joining us tonight. Okay. I also wanted to just say, before we kind of jump into the meat of the conversation, I just wanted to say how much we appreciate Mid-Continent Public Library and Square One Business Services for doing this in the first place, for giving us this platform and for getting this thing started. I guess that's it. Everybody ready? We're just going to jump in with some prepared questions. But like I said, if you're listening and you have questions or you have something to add, definitely drop that in the comment section and we'll get it addressed. So the first question that I have for all of you is one that was tossed to me when I first did this panel in May. And I thought it was a good kind of state of the industry question. So I wanted to just throw it out again. And it's, if you were to write a report or story about the overall restaurant or hospitality industry in September of 2021, what would be the headline? Does anybody want to start with that?
I'll jump in. So I like to steal titles from other people. So I took Rich Chef, Poor Chef. Because I've kind of seen, we've heard a lot about a K-shaped recovery, and even within restaurants, some of we'll just take like fine dining, really tanked. Whereas I have a few clients who are maybe in like Asian takeout. They've had some of the best months they've ever had since the restaurant was open. So, you know, I don't know, just to maybe point out that it's not the same for everybody. Your niche could actually do very well depending on what you're in.
Right. Yeah, that's a great point.
I guess I'll go next. Yeah, it kind of is close to that, but mine is the decline of small business entrepreneurship and the new American dream. I feel like the industry as a whole, people are looking for a lot different things on the side of being owners or even working in the industry. So we'll kind of touch base on that, on why I feel like it's declining.
Yeah. All right.
Yeah,
Matt?
mine's going to be way worse. My professors would be really mad about this. I had two, and for a total of 4 words between them.
Okay.
One was whelp, WELP, and the other was, well, that happened. Because like for real though, like so many times when I was sitting either by myself or with folks like across the table, after all the discussions of the very real stuff that you guys just said in your titles, which were seriously so much better than mine, like those were the kind of sentiments that started coming out, right? Were people like burying their heads in their hands or staring across the table, the stuff they can't say in front of their teams or to their spouses even, like, well, that just happened. Like they had a total collapse in front of their team, or their business is going down, or it's like, what in the world just happened? Like none of us had any idea what to do. There's no template for it. So yeah, that was kind of where I went with it.
Yeah, that's good. And appropriate, because especially in the area of talking about the restaurant industry and labor, from shutting down and like having to tell your staff, we don't have a job for you, we're not open, to now in the state that we're in now, if you've recovered and you've got the business, it's like, drinking from a fire hydrant and you don't have enough staff. So it's within 12 months, that swing is crazy. Okay. Anybody want to add anything else before we move on?
No, I want to hear more about Kate's her theory though. So let's look at it.
Okay.
The new American dream. Let's hear it.
Yeah.
Like, you want to know now? Okay. Yeah.
Let's do it.
I think mainly what I mean by that is I feel like a lot of people are jumping ship from owning their own businesses to finding something more stable. They know that if they work for large corporations, they're going to have a job. They're more likely to have a job in the long term. They don't have to deal with the stress of who knows what's going to happen next. And there's this kind of like pit feeling inside for a lot of small business entrepreneurs of, is my business going to be open in 2 weeks? Things change on the fly more than expected because of COVID and everything that is happening. So I feel like that's the new dream, is just stability. Whereas before, the American dream was, I want to take risks. I want to build something. And for me, and it's still my American dream, but I see a lot of people switching gears, and it's really sad.
Yeah. Yeah. Brian, do you want to add anything or?
No, I wanted to hear more. So, no, I mean, I did the same thing, right? I started my own company, and however tough you think it's going to be, it's probably tougher. And however rewarding you think it's going to be, it's probably going to be more rewarding. And I mean, the emotional swings are there for sure. So
Yeah.
I guess that's my 2 cents.
Yeah. Well, the shift that Kate talks about is definitely, you know, that kind of the shift in perspective is, I mean, that's hit a lot of different industries, but definitely the restaurant industry. And part of that is because of the culture, not just the instability of it, but you know, restaurant culture is not the healthiest culture, and you know, recently has taken a lot of hits. So I think that gave people some breathing room and some time to think about it and get perspective on it and shift, you know, to another industry. So, okay. So Kate, I'm going to keep going with you. What would you say are the biggest concerns or challenges that you as a restaurant owner are facing right now?
Oh, I think everybody is dealing with staffing right now. And honestly, just in all industries, everybody is so short staffed. That's the biggest concern, is that people are now out and about, and because they have the opportunity to be out, and we just weren't prepared for that because we didn't know. We didn't know when restaurants were going to be able to be open again. We still don't know if that's going to happen again, where we had to reduce capacity, things like that. And that is like one of my biggest concerns, is if I do staff up and then there's a restriction, I had to let people go. And it's not easy to keep having to fluctuate, because you're now an unreliable employer, because you promise these people so many hours. They have bills to pay, and then you have to let them go, and vice versa. You don't have enough people, and you're just really running everybody on thin wires and long hours, and it's very stressful. So definitely, it's one of my biggest concerns. The restaurant culture, I'm actually really glad that it's coming to light. I think this has been a problem for a long time. When I first moved to Kansas City, I tried to get a job. No one would hire me because I'm a woman, and they didn't want me in their kitchen. And now that's like coming out to light, that there is this very, just really bad culture in a lot of these restaurants. I'm glad that we're all trying to move in the right direction of creating those better environments for people.
Yeah. What are some things that you're doing? One of the things that I have, one of the reasons I wanted you to be on this panel is because, I mean, you're basically in the thick of, you just opened in December of last year. And so you are really in the thick of trying to hire people and build a team and create that culture in the middle of all of this.
Yeah.
So can you share with us some things that you have learned from that?
Yeah. Expect the unexpected. It's literally like mountains. One day you're going to feel really good about where you're at, and then the next day, or even the next week, you're going to be like, what am I doing? Why is this happening? How do I come back from this? And it's going to be constant, and it's going to be that way for a while. You just have to mentally prepare yourself. But what I've learned is that you actually don't know success until you've been unsuccessful. And so you just take this moment to realize what you have to do to better your company, and create a team that you can trust. And especially for me, being pregnant, I have to really put my trust in a lot of people when I leave for a short period of time. And I think, things that I've learned is that you really have to build a lot of respect not just people to respect you as your employer, but you have to respect your employees. They have a life, they have a family. I always worked for my parents, or I worked for large companies that I didn't really care. It's all about the business. And for me, that was something I quickly learned is I don't want to be that employer. I want to listen to my people, what they need, what they want. I want them to feel valued from day one. Even a couple years ago when I just started Kate Smith Soiree, that tiny little stall, I said,
Right.
I never want to pay someone minimum wage. They're worth way more than that. This is my dream, my livelihood. They're here to help me. They're worth a lot. They're like family to me now. Like, it's, yeah.
I love to hear that. One of the things I think I've been so impressed by, there are a million things, but this is one of them, is that as you, even in this time where it's really uncertain, you continue to do, like, you continue to take your workers out. You continue to do team builders and things like that, and, you know, close your restaurant in order to do that in this time, which I think is really great. Like, that's just, yeah. Matt's agreeing. Yeah. So do you think that has helped you keep your team together?
Absolutely. I mean, yeah, they see each other at work all the time, but I want them to realize that I care about them outside of work. I want them to socialize with each other outside of work. I know for a lot of people, the last thing they want to do is hang out with their coworkers, but for
Amen. I mean, I didn't say that. I mean, I didn't mean that way. But I would say, not to cut in, but I would say that we, as the market, when we have those team builders, you know, we try to get people together and stuff, and we want to do all that stuff. It's like, yeah, nobody wants to be here anymore. Like, yeah, but I see your pictures on Instagram, and they're all there, and they're all having a good time. And I'm like, that's so awesome.
I think it also builds something for them to look forward to, because they're always asking, what's our next group outing going to be? And it's an opportunity to create goals for your company. Say, hey, if we can, you know, upsell so many cookies and a drink or whatever it is that you want to accomplish, we'll take you guys out and we'll go do Top Golf or whatever. And they get really excited about that. And sometimes we just take them out because we've just been struggling so hard, and I want people to take a breath and realize, hey, it's gonna be okay. We're gonna get through it. People can say horrible things to us and be upset with us because they waited a long time for their meal or whatever, because we're so short-staffed. And those are all small things. At the end of the day, like, we're still a team, and I'm really proud of them. And I just want them to know that I'm thankful and proud of what they do. So I make it a point that we all get to do group outings, and again, back to make them feel appreciated, because really I cannot do this without them.
Yeah, I love that. Matt, I want to give you a chance to talk here, and I just had a thought off of the no heckling. I just had a thought. It's off script, so watch out. But one of the reasons I wanted you on this panel is because, you know, as a leader and a manager, especially like in Kate's situation where she's trying to build this culture, honesty, vulnerability with your staff, I think is really, really important. And I'd kind of like you to talk about that, if you can. Please.
No. It wasn't on the
it's not on there.
Preordained. No, I put it in a little thing over to you guys, but man, I was excited over here because stuff like that, it might not even seem like a big deal, but assuming it's all things are what they sound like, that stuff matters more than you know that it does, and more than you think that it does, because it's just human, right?
Yeah.
You're not gaining business wise, you're actually losing strictly numbers wise, right? Because you're open fewer hours,
Yeah.
you're making less money, you're investing resources that could go to the business in the people. But believe me, that matters more, right? Because when you're thinking about running a human business, which I actually believe is a moral imperative you have as a leader. I really do. It's a moral imperative you have as a leader. If you're a leader, it's an imperative that you have. But people need to know that they are known as a unique human being separate from other people, right? That's just a human need that we have. They need to know that their work matters and how it matters and to whom that it matters. And they need to know what success looks like within their role. Like those are just three big things that people need to know and understand. If they don't know and understand those things with specificity, they're going to feel just like lost and like a cog. But when you take time to connect with them on a human level, like you're doing, that matters. And each time they have that experience, it's like this cumulative effect. It becomes like a community of people instead of just individual cogs running around doing stuff. And it really, really does matter, because then when you mess up, because you will, because you're a person and we all do, there's a lot more latitude that you're going to get, right? Brian's going to have less terrible stuff to do because they're going to be less inclined to hold your feet to the fire every single time you mess up, which you're going to because you're a person. Because they're going to be like, oh, well, yeah, of course she messed up because she's a person just like I am. But
Well, and especially right now, I mean, so much. Like, I mean, we're navigating these situations that are so unique that, I mean, do we know that it's right? We're making the best decision we
right,
can with the
exactly,
information we have, and we're human,
right,
and that's it. And so, as much as you can show that humanity, I think, to
right,
your staff, which has really been missing in this industry, and like what you said, Matt, about treating people like a human.
right.
Those things, if we focus on those things, I think that will definitely help
And that builds that
overall
trust.
restaurant culture.
I mean, and
Yeah,
Kate said it earlier. I think she called it two-way respect, right?
right.
That's the kind of thing that we talk about all the time. I talk to CEOs and vice presidents about that all the time. They're like, I want to build trust. So I want to go do the trust fall thing. And I'm like, you can go do that, but it's not going to build trust, at least not the kind you're wanting, unless your job involves people falling backwards into each other all the time. Otherwise, it's not going to work, because that's not the kind of trust that you actually need right now. It's the kind that Kate's talking about: mutual vulnerability and humanness, the ability to go to someone else and be like, man, I really messed that up.
Yeah,
Can we talk about that? I lost my temper with you. When do we hear that from we don't hear it, but we
right.
should, because that's what humans do. That's what people do
Yeah.
who care about each other. I was so stressed out and I was short with you. I think I actually interrupted you. Would you mind? I want to sit down and listen to what you had to say. That would blow somebody's mind, but they would start trusting you for sure.
Yeah.
You know what I
Yeah.
mean? So that
Yeah.
two-way respect, Kate, man alive, that's fantastic.
You actually brought up a good point. You mentioned the word investing, and I always believe that as an owner and as an entrepreneur, you have two choices. You can invest in really great equipment that is foolproof, or you can invest in the people that work for you, and they will always do what is best for you, and they will give you their whole heart and their loyalty. And so I will always put people first. I can have nice things in my kitchen and cool equipment and stuff that make people think it's fun to come to work. But if you actually invest in those people, I do that any day over anybody. Yeah, over anything.
Well, the cool thing for you, Kate, and I'll get back on the track, I promise. But the cool thing for you is research tells us that those teams, usually all else being equal, are going to outperform other teams too. All things being equal, assuming they're getting the training and they understand the gig, and the business is put together well and whatever, they're going to perform well. So the cool stuff you're going to start being able to afford also, because the business is going to do well, because those people are going
Right.
to know the job, and they're not going to have all the bandwidth being taken up with politics and drama and whatever.
Right.
They're going to be motivated and they're going to put in the work. They're going to work hard and extra because they love the job and they like being there, and whatever else. And Brian, feel free to chime in too with what you've seen, of course. But anyway, for whatever that's worth, you're not going to have to make do with nothing just because you're investing in people.
Yeah. Brian, do you have something to add?
Yeah, and of course the phone just started ringing. But no, just to add on the kudos to Kate. Everything you've been saying is exactly what I look for when I meet with new clients. Like, do they care about their people? Are they putting in extra effort? It sounds like you have a very bright future ahead of you. If you keep up those principles, you can't fail. It's just you will be successful at some point in time, because when you have a bunch of people who like working with you and for you, it's going to work. So I'd say keep at it. What you said, if I had half my clients saying that, my job would be so much easier. Tenth the amount of work. So
See, Kate?
Yeah,
keep it up.
I'm doing something right.
Yes, absolutely. But that actually takes me in. Well, I'm going to go two different directions. The first one is, and then Kate, I'll let you off the hot seat here. But
Okay. Thank you.
but the first one, when I think about the things that you're doing like that, and how difficult it is to attract employees now, because there's a lot of competition, and I know you're struggling to find people and attract good people, but some of those things, what you're doing to build that team is definitely something that I think would attract employees to your business. So that kind of makes me want to kind of hear, what are some of those things that, I know you've struggled with this. What are some of the things that you've learned in attracting employees to come and work at Butterfields or Kate Smith?
I think we really just, like, from the get-go, we had to really take a step back, look at what the industry as a whole is offering, and whether that's wages, benefits, all the above, everything. And we had to make sure that we were being competitive and we were being fair, because as an industry, I know a lot of people, they want higher wages. They've been very poorly paid in the past. And so we wanted to make sure that we were also paying our employees fairly. And if we were going to start offering higher wages for new people coming in, we need to adjust people who are already working for us. I think a lot of business owners don't think that through, and they start to bring in all these people and they offer great benefits and pay. And sometimes they'll make more than people who have been with you from the get-go and have been loyal to you. And so we kind of just had to really evaluate everything as a whole. And then, I'm not gonna lie, it is very hard to find people who will even just show up for an interview. I still struggle with that. If someone has the magic answer on how to get people to show up, I will gladly listen to that podcast all day long.
Yeah.
Because I feel like I could do everything right. I can offer very competitive wages. I can offer benefits. I offer a really good company environment. And it's just like a cool place to work at. Like, the Lenexa Public Market it's like perfect. You kind of have a little bit of everything. There's a lot. It's a great community. And I don't know. I definitely struggle to find good help. And when I do find good help, they don't last very long. They don't stay very long, because another company poaches them, offers them more money that, as a small business, I cannot compete with. That's so difficult.
You have had some people poach. That's really tough.
Yeah.
And the competition out there right now is
Yeah.
from companies hiring
Yeah.
bonuses and starting bonuses and things like that.
Yeah.
It's very
Like,
tough. Very tough.
my employees are pretty honest with me when they leave me, and they say, I can't say no to this offer. And sometimes they don't even give me an opportunity to try to match that offer. They'll take the best thing that they can get, and kudos to them. I always want what's best for them, and I never hold that over their head. I just wish, as a small business owner, I could compete with that, but I know that. Yeah. I just have to try my best and hope that I can find people that value a boss who actually cares, and always treat them right. I don't know. Yeah, it's tough.
Yeah.
It's a tough. Yeah.
Well, I mean, I think you're doing everything that you can. I don't know that anybody has the magic answer at this
Yeah.
point, really. I mean, unless they have the magic dollars.
Yeah.
I don't know.
But, yeah.
Brian, I kind of wanted to talk to you because I think you're doing some recruiting as well, and I don't know if you have anything to add in terms of like, what you're seeing as to, how businesses are able to attract workers right now. Any kind of new or different ways that people are approaching it?
Yeah, I think I'll take kind of a couple different angles. So, first angle, retention. A few of the things we've done at a few of my clients, it's just more transparency and how much pay you actually make. So, they're collecting a lot more of the data than they used to of how much tips are we getting. We've done a lot of experiments, whether it's tip sharing or whatever else. But at least one in particular, the company kind of guaranteed if you're not making $15 an hour after tips, we'll make up that difference. So that, and this is very new, but we're rolling it out on their pay stubs just to show, hey, on average, our people are actually making $20+ an hour. And if you're not, we're going to make sure you're at least getting that lower, the 15. But what I've seen, so I'm going to hop over now to the recruiting side. The jobs where and this is across a lot of different industries, so don't let your jaw hit the floor, but if wages are above $20, $25 an hour, we're getting a lot of applicants, we're getting people in for interviews. It's under $20 an hour that if we don't call them the day they apply, they're probably not showing up to the interview, and we're trying to schedule those as quickly as we can and things like that. Underneath that 20, it is a free-for-all right now, and that's where the bonuses are. And one of my clients is right by JCPenney's distribution center. So as people drive in for interviews, they see $18 an hour starting wage and $2,000 sign-on bonus, and they're not paying that. So it's not even just the applicants, but every employee, as they leave and go hop on the highway, they see it. Now, it's a small family-owned company. We have other benefits and things we do to appreciate our employees, whereas large distribution centers tend to be much more physical, demanding work than what they're doing. But it's still so tempting to everybody, right? So, the best thing we've done is try and retain the people you do have. What can we do to do that? And some of those solutions we tried didn't work at all, and we might have lost a person or two because now, bartenders who are used to making more are having to share more with others. So we lost some good bartenders. So I don't have a magic solution by any means, but just trying. And back to Kate's point of, I'm out here trying to make this as good as I can. Being open about, we lost a ton of money over this past year, but we're still committed to you guys, our employees. And the more you can share that message, and just back to Matt's point of vulnerability, and we're all human, it's when you try and put on this facade of, we're going to pay you this because that's what your job's worth, you're going to be losing everybody. But if it's what would work for you guys and all of those things, it's at least been helpful. I'm not going to say turnover is not still happening and that people are just knocking on the door to work there, but it seems to be working better than a lot of other places. So I don't know. I'll let somebody else hop in.
Yeah. There's a comment from someone listening in that the U.S. food rep said they're paying $30 an hour and a $20,000 bonus. That's like, sign me up, man.
Yeah, I will quit my job today.
Right.
I'll learn how to drive a truck.
Yeah, but I think what that touches on is, Matt, maybe you're going to jump in here too, but But you're really looking for people who love what they do. Like, I'm not quitting my job for that. I love what I do. Kate, I know you love what you do. If you are creating that kind of work environment and you can find those people and attract those people, then you wouldn't necessarily maybe have that issue. I don't know. Anybody else? That's not really any wisdom.
I mean, your basic stuff you think about too, and yeah, this is nothing new, but referrals are always kind of
Oh
a
yeah.
go-to. You think about you
Yeah.
start thinking about where can you eliminate friction, right? Ease of getting there. Referrals are folks who are going to know the culture, know what you're about, and also know the people on the outside that would or would not, probably more importantly, would not be a good fit.
Yeah.
So referral bonuses, like referral programs, even if they're not all, huge and fancy, that kind of thing, I would look at. And then, however, it doesn't even have to be sophisticated, but some sort of digital setup where people are able to do as much of that process online as possible, because you are trying to, like Brian was talking about, the speed with which people can get the process done, as much as you can chop that down, is a huge deal. So if people feel like they can click on apply now with your already online application, apply with your Facebook profile, I mean, come on, they're going to do it. And then we lose that
Yeah.
fight. Fair or not, that's how it is right now. So if there's
Right.
a way that we can do that, like somehow target those ads to the folks that you want to get them, right? So think about how your whole recruitment thing is structured right now. Think about if there's a way that you can reduce that friction, make that process fast and easy for the people that you want it to be easy for, then you might be onto something. Pair that up with referrals and whatever else, and then maybe you're in business. Who knows?
That anybody else before I had something come up. So that kind of made me think of, so let's say you do, you make it really easy, you get people in and you get them hired and you realize, oh no, they're toxic to my culture. Kate, do you want to talk about this? Matt, anybody? So obviously you want to get people in, that are going to be a good fit, right? But what do we do when we have someone in this environment that is
Senator
not
Brian?
a good fit, someone who's toxic? Yeah. Yeah, Brian, what would you say to that? What would you say?
Say, this is my old advice. Oh,
No, I said
This
I'm
is
sorry.
my-
I didn't mean to dump it on Brian.
no, this is my old advice pre-COVID, but it was hire carefully, fire quickly. So
Ooh, that's a good one. I'm typing that.
go for it. If you notice right away that they're bad for the culture, I mean, first thing, look at yourself. Have you given them the tools, the training, the education? But if people are bad right away, and they're bad right away, it's very, very rare that you turn that back around. So most managers were so invested because we did this recruiting process. We think you're the right fit. We keep kind of dragging our feet, and a lot of companies. And so, did you lose me?
Yeah, just for a second. Just for a few seconds.
You're so committed to the whole process, everything you've invested, that it's like, well, they're just not working out, but we'll keep trying. We'll keep trying. 6 months, a year goes by, and odds are you haven't had like a real performance conversation with them, a tough conversation. They haven't been working out the whole time, and the culture is being drugged down for everybody else. So, the advice of hire carefully, fire quickly. That's step one. But I don't know if you're having a really hard time getting people in, you kind of have to reevaluate that. And it's more training, coaching, clear expectations. And if people continuously shoot themselves in the foot, like, I don't know what else I could have told you, so.
Are there any things when it comes to terminating people in in COVID times. Is there anything that is different that you've seen come up that are, things to watch out for?
I'd just say,
Point.
yeah, I'd just say be careful about if they have expressed medical concerns to you, maybe run that by somebody else or think carefully about it, right? So
Yeah.
all of the old red flags for an employment attorney, have they complained recently? Is there any sort of protection that might be in place? Those are all still in play, and health-related reasons have always been protected, but now especially. If they said they couldn't come in on Friday because they're feeling sick, firing them on Friday is probably not a good idea, right? So,
Yeah.
we want to give kudos to people who are following our safety protocols, not term them for it. But no, I mean, not too much more than normal. Just before you do it, take a step back. Think about if you were an outsider, kind of hearing how this situation is played out. That's a good first step, maybe.
Okay.
It's all your
Matt, you
normal.
want to add?
Yeah, I mean, it's just all your normal stuff too, right? It's are you being consistent with everybody? Has it been codified, right? Is it written down somewhere the way that you're doing this stuff? Or have you coached them on this? And with your coaching, have you documented the steps that you've taken with this person, right? Is it going to be a surprise to them, or they know it's coming? If it's a surprise, you have to ask yourself, why are they surprised, right? Because like you said, someone else is going to probably, maybe, but act like probably going to look at it. And when they do, will they be able to see a clear trail of documentation? Even if you are a super small business, go ahead and get in the habit, because you're going to grow, right, Kate? You're going to grow. So get in the habit now of documenting this stuff, coaching conversations and whatever, so that when it comes time, you
Can
already
I
have all the
say
stuff.
how happy I am that a non-lawyer is telling people to do documentation?
Right.
No, because
He's a non-lawyer, but he's in HR. He's been in HR.
I've had HR stuff before, and so
Yeah,
even though I'm not
absolutely.
detail oriented, story, you have to have the story. You have to know by the time, if I have to pillow my head knowing that something unfortunate has happened to somebody, I need to know that the story makes sense, or I'm not going to feel good about having to have that difficult conversation with somebody. So it has to be documented. Has to be documented.
A way I try and tell managers, and I'm glad you brought up story, but managers to think about it, because they've been told to document forever, right? This isn't a new concept, but it is a pain, and they're busy with other stuff, so they never want to do it. So something I always say is employment law is storytelling. What story do you have? What story does the employee have? As a business, we expect you to keep records. We expect you to be able to point to what actually led to this. So, Matt's spot on here with your documentation is only going to help you. It's only going to make it more clear to everybody. Because if you have had that tough conversation of here's what we expect, and if it doesn't happen, here's going to be the consequences, then they're not surprised, and it isn't a blind side. Yeah. So thank you, Matt. Again.
Matt, let's talk about what a toxic employee does to culture.
Whatever they're allowed to do, usually.
They're
like
quick. The infestation is quick, right?
They're like water, right? They will fill and go and do whatever space they're given. Usually they are an outgrowth, a byproduct of a systemic thing. They don't exist on their own. Too often this sounds like I'm saying, they're just a product of their environment and shouldn't be blamed or whatever for their actions, like they don't bear responsibility for them. They do, but it's a both and thing, right? When Brian was giving the example earlier, I threw something over into our chat about it's also a systemic failure at that point. If he's gone 6 months, this person, who's not a real person, of course, but it's 6 months later, and I think Brian would agree, 6 months later without a coaching thing, well, then leadership, we failed. Like, I've blown it by that point. If someone on my team has jacked up for 6 months and I haven't said anything to them.
Well, how do you recover at that point? Like, because you're not obligated to keep them, right? What's the
Depends
Brian?
what you mean by obligated. Depends what you mean by obligated. If by not legally because at will or whatever, sure. But I won't be able to sleep if I just let someone go and I'm like, well, because it's not at will, so ta-da. But I can't in good conscience. Matt, I'm not speaking for anyone else,
Yeah.
but like my job is to help that person succeed and to give them the tools and develop. And if they're in the door at that point, then somebody somewhere saw something, right? Okay, so then I dig in and I do everything I can to develop and coach the pudding out of that person and figure out what's going wrong. There are 18,000 different learning styles at this point, right?
Yeah.
All right, sometimes I have to roll up my sleeves and do some hard work and figure out, man, because there are a lot of people who could have given up on me because I'm a bit of a mess, as you can tell by now. But people didn't along the way.
Yeah.
And so I was able to figure some stuff out. Well, someone needs to help this mess of a person at some point. So why not me? Why not? Eventually I'll figure out maybe this person is a good fit for this and maybe they're not, but I can't yet. You know what I mean? If I've not done anything. So now if they're toxic, and we're talking toxic in the way of stirring up trouble, and we've tried to coach, then yeah, eventually, but I've had so many conversations with that person that they are likely going to either self-select or be so sick of me that they know that when I'm sitting down with them after that final warning, I'm like, look, you understand what's about to happen. I'm going to treat you with respect because you're due it as a human being, but you also understand I have a responsibility to other people and these teammates that you know by now. We can't continue doing this anymore. And, I think we're going to talk about that here in a minute, but
Yeah.
Can I add to that?
Please do.
Yeah.
You're better than me.
So yeah, that's a really great point, Matt, on how you can keep having these conversations, and at a certain point, you just have to, you have to call it. You can try so hard to coach people through it, but if they're creating a negative work environment for everybody else, it's bringing the whole team down. I think for me, that is what I struggle with the most. I like to see the human in people and know that people have bad days. But when, it prolongs for so many months and it's daily and it happens when you're not around, and it's just very ingrained in the environment. That's when kind of as the business owner and as the leader, you have to step up and say, I don't care how much we're going to struggle without one less person on our team, because it is so hard to get people to be here as is, but
Right.
you have to do what's best for your business. Because in the long run, they're hurting your business. It can cause other team members to start to behave that way because they see that it's okay to do that. There's no repercussions for that. And so, it's so tough to walk that line as a leader, because you don't want to have to be that person that's like, we've given you so many chances, but I think I'm really kind of starting to get into that phase where I don't feel as guilty anymore, because I have to do what's best for the team as a whole, because I am in charge of so many people and this is their livelihood. It's not just that one person.
What's going to be so helpful though in those situations is if you're, and Brian, please jump in here too, is if you're so crystal clear on what those behavioral values or what those behaviors are, right? What exactly does it look like to be a positive contributing member of your team? Like what specifically does that look like, so that it's not your opinion, right? It's not, oh, Kate had a bad day, so she's being mean to me, and so then she's like writing me up or whatever. It's like, this is what us doing life here together looks like, and it's consistent, it's across the board and applies to everybody. So it's not something that goes on for months. It can't possibly be that someone gets to be like that forever. It's essentially a performance, or is that the right word? Yeah, a performance-based thing, a competency, much like anything else is, right? Someone couldn't miss work over and over and over again and just be fine and float along. Well, someone can't be a jerk. over and over and over again and just float along. Because you've said specifically, hopefully from way back in the interview process, this is who we are and what we're about, and this is what it means to be one of us. It's been crystal clear, and then they walk in and start being a poop. And you're like, oh, well, it's day 2, you can't be a poop. We talked about not being a poop. Now you're being a poop. Oh, it's day 4, you're being a poop again. We just talked about that. Tell you what, just so we're on the same page, I'm gonna go ahead and jot this down, right? Because we had a verbal poop conversation, now we're having a written poop conversation. Oh, it's day 7, and this is the 3rd poop. I just need you to know this is a formal written poop thing, right? So they won't be able to persist in poopiness. I didn't plan this, but this is quite bizarre.
But you went with it. You went all
Yeah, I committed
and
to.
I want to see some Instagram content.
Yeah. How to make a serious subject be
Right.
just stupid. Anyway, I hope that helps in some way, but I feel certain it did not. All right.
Way less fun, but I like to analogize it maybe more to a family. A lot of people try to say, this is my work family, you know, or work team is our family. Well, I don't know about you guys, but in my family, if mom's late to Thanksgiving every once in a while, we don't kick her out, right? You're still a part of the family. But we have had addicts in the family, and when you're abusing the rest of the family, you're stealing from the family, you're emotionally toxic to the family. At some point, you have to say the family can't continue to support you. You need to go get your own help. So maybe just a different way to look at it.
I like yours better.
Yeah. Well, I didn't say poop enough, though. So.
No poop involved. Right. Okay. Oh. Well, speaking of toxicity, so one of the things that we skipped over before, but that I think we should touch on is, so, you know, customers have returned to restaurants and their behavior is different, right? Am I the only one? Am I the only one seeing this? Like, their expectations are different, their behavior is different. Like, right, Kate?
Yeah. I think it really did a number on us on telling people you would stay home, can't go out and eat. And then no one knew how long that was going to last. And then out of the blue, they're like, okay, everything is open. And nobody was prepared.
Right?
Yeah, back to normal. Restaurants were not prepared for that. And people, I swear, everybody tried to go out to eat that first day. With their whole families, and nobody was prepared, and wait times were just awful for everybody. Everybody was running out of food. Wait times, the capacity, the space, people were still trying to be cautious. We were all trying to do the whole 6 feet apart and create all these systems, and people just weren't very nice about it, I will say.
Your staff is really like, I mean, I've heard stories from pretty much all of the restaurant owners in the market, but yours specifically, like your staff has really taken some abuse from customers, which I don't get it really, but it's true. So can you share one or a few?
I mean, like some examples. I mean, it's mainly just, we change a lot of our business model over and over again. We're about to do it again. Like, we are constantly trying to change and adapt to what the industry and what the market is looking for and what we can sustain for a long time. And I think people get so frustrated when even just simple things, if we remove something off of our menu because prices have gone way up, or we've, our prices have raised by $1 or by 50 cents. People just get so upset. And I think they just have this level of expectation, and they don't realize that it's across the whole board. We don't have control over what the cost of our food is, and we have to adapt and change our pricing for that. We have to be competitive in our labor wages, and so that's going to affect pricing. And everybody's struggling finding drivers to even just bring us our product. We a lot of times don't get our shipments in, and people don't understand that. And then they're so upset when we don't have breakfast potatoes or just the most random things. And it's brutal. And my cashiers will cry. They'll go home and they'll cry because someone has just completely thrown a fit. I had a lady throw her drink at me because I charged her $2 for a soda. And she said she's never had to pay $2 for a soda, which is crazy to me. I pay.
I mean, I laugh about it. It's not funny. It's not
I know.
Funny. The ridiculousness of it is really.
Yeah, I've had restaurant owners. They'll come and visit Kansas City, and they'll be like, "It is so ridiculous that you're charging $10 for a sandwich." And I'm like, I don't know how you can afford to not charge that and make money and pay your employees fairly. It's crazy.
So even if you have this great culture, this great work culture, it's like, it's just the industry itself.
Yeah.
You've got customers coming and throwing drinks at you and stuff.
It scares the industry workers, because they're like, I could work a desk job and not have to be, friendly to people if I don't want to be, and I can just kind of be in my own world and I make the same amount of money, and it's hard to compete with that. But I've been lucky that the people that I do have that work customer facing, they all love what they do and they love being around people. It's
gotta have some skin, man. Gotta have some thick skin right now. Yeah. Matt, you were laughing. What are you laughing at?
I was laughing at I could just sit in an office or a cubicle and not have to be nice to people. That's it.
Yeah. I've had someone quit and tell me that exactly verbatim. They said, I could go work in front of a computer in an office or at my house and not have to be nice to anybody and make the same amount of money. And I was like, okay, that is fair. Yeah. If you don't like being in front of people, which I ask everybody that I interview if that is something that you enjoy, because I wouldn't hire them, and they always say yes, but then when they actually have to do it, they're like, maybe I'm not really good at that. So it happens. Yeah.
Probably a tough moment for whoever.
Okay, Megan, do you want to share your story? Megan's listening. I'd like to hear this story.
Oh,
one.
We have a private chat in the background, and I was just saying, I've worked in retail through July. Actually, I started here at the library, but I was still working part-time at a grocery store and seeing the behavior of folks. And I was working at Trader Joe's, and it's a store where we continued to require masks and have a line at the door. And the people, I was thinking, Kate, there were days that I went home and I was in tears. I mean, people were mean. And there was a lady who, we put her bag on the ground, and she came and she went out to the vestibule, got a spray of cleaning spray, and came and sprayed the floor at our feet. Basically,
oh my God,
with cleaning spray. I was like, what is happening? I think people are definitely, you can just feel the fact that people are on edge in a way that they maybe in other situations would have not thought to do that. There's definitely some things that you wouldn't expect to see. But at the flip side, also, particularly at that store, a lot of folks who shopped there because we were enforcing those rules and thanked us. There was a woman who would shop every Sunday morning. That's when I would work. And every day she would come to every one of us and say, thank you for working. So there was also the flip side of folks who were very appreciative of the fact that, hey, I recognize that this is a scary time, and you're willing to keep your mask on for 8 hours and do a physical job with a mask on for 8 hours. And thanks for being here so that I can get groceries. So there's both sides too.
Yeah.
Yeah. It outweighs, the positive outweighs all the negative stuff. But when you get those negative experiences, it sits with you for for a while. But yeah, we've seen regulars come out constantly. Even when we shut down, we offered door delivery, and a lot of my regulars would order every single week, and they would order hundreds of dollars of items and food just so we could stay open, and so I wouldn't have to let go of my staff just to keep us afloat. And it's just kind of incredible to see that side of it all, and the people that really care and want small businesses to thrive and succeed. And I'm also in the wedding industry.
Because that was part of the question was, what's the best thing to come out of it for you? Is it that?
Yeah, creating
this
relationships that just kind of, it made me see like I really, really value those people that do come and visit us. And something that we learned in school all the time is it's not about getting more customers. It's about keeping the customers that you already have. That's way more important. You want to make sure that they're coming back and they're having consistent positive experiences and creating relationships. We don't sell a product. We build a relationship. And being in the wedding industry side of things too, I get to see a lot of the ups and downs of that. There's no weddings for a year and a half, 2 years. People are postponing. There's only so many vendors, and there's only really one or two people that do what I do. I have a very niche market in the wedding industry. I don't do the traditional desserts. I'm very untraditional. And I've had couples who will call me and their wedding is the same year and we're already booked up. And I've had couples cry and tell me that they want to hurt themselves because they can't book me, or just very extreme reactions. And I'm a very guilty person.
Is this lately? Like, is this
Yeah.
post-COVID? Oh my goodness. Wow.
Because I told all my COVID couples that had to postpone, I said, even if I'm booked the following year, whatever date you decide on, we will make that work. I will find the staff to make it work. I'm not going to make you struggle and find somebody else because there is nobody else. And then when new people try to book me for those dates, I physically can't take any more without doing a disservice to the people that I already have booked and compromising the quality of their bookings and what we provide them. So yeah, I've had people really upset with me and tell me that I don't want their money, that their money is no good to me apparently, or I'm too good for their money, which is not the case. It's a really, really hard situation for everybody.
Yeah. So I want to transition to growth because, like you were talking about customers coming and buying gift cards and supporting you in that way. And part of that support definitely, and your ability to pivot, right, to meet the demands in a very, very difficult period. But those things allowed you the opportunity to grow, right? So one of the good things that's come out of COVID are opportunities like that. And you were in a position to be able to take that, right?
Yeah.
So I want to actually ask this of Matt. So let's say a restaurant owner like Kate, they've weathered COVID well, they've been able to pivot their model, they're ready to grow, they've got an opportunity. What are the top 3 things you would hope or you would want them to consider as they move into growth?
I think this was the hardest question that you gave me. Weirdly. Only
I mean, the Hive Song wasn't hard. The Hive Song.
No, that one came to me really fast, oddly. Only because I can answer it generally, and that was the struggle for me, because I found myself I don't know. I found myself wanting to know,
Kate.
hundreds of people's specific. Yeah, I wanted to know Kate, and I wanted to know what her specific situation was, and what happened, and what roadblocks she ran into, and then what she did, and then how her mind is wired, and what her Myers-Briggs type was, and what, like, right, a million different things, so that I could speak specifically to.
Man, that's deep.
It can't possibly be. But I know what I've thought about for like most of my clients in general, and for people that I've talked to, just basically, I think about what people did and how people I know as individuals and how organizations that I know of seemed to change in general when all of this started going down, and then as we kind of navigated the twists and the turns and whatever, something happened to a lot of people. Not everybody and not every business, but for a lot of people, there were good times and bad times, certainly. INFP, thank you. And not all of us maintained all of these things I'm about to mention like consistently throughout, right? A lot of us had dips and whatever, myself included. But a lot of us found this sense of like motivation and grit that maybe we didn't always know that we had. I saw organizations that were largely timid and reserved have to not be, or they were going to die. So they tapped into that.
Yeah.
You know? And friends of ours that may or may not still be on this thing, I can't see the thing, are moving into larger spaces now. I don't want to give her big head, so I won't say necessarily. Maybe Carmen will, but her Mexican food is amazing. But somehow that happened during a pandemic, right? Like, and she's growing and crescendoing, and I don't know. You have to have a fair degree of grit.
Yeah.
And the adaptability, which is the next thing. Like, people had to figure out, even the tightest, most conservative, I don't want to change for anything, suddenly had to, or they were going to die.
Mm-hmm.
That's just how it was. Right. Kids were doing it better than adults, and then adults were looking around like, oh, well, I guess we have to.
That's a good observation.
And so there was this adaptability that people were figuring out that they had. And I was like, well, you dummy, of course you did. Because you did when you were a kid. It was just corporate America figured out how to beat it out of you. So you do their spreadsheets. But of course you had it. Of course. Of course you should still be an entrepreneur if you were before. Of course you should. Just catch your breath a second. You'll be fine. You'll be A-okay. And that goes hand in hand. Go ahead. What's that?
No, I mean, if I'm thinking, if a business owner is talking to me about, hey, I have these opportunities, I'm thinking about pursuing them. You know, I always am on the side of, hey, try it, right? At least try it, see what happens. But recently I've been thinking about it a little differently, and this isn't my own thought. I think it's James Clear from Atomic Habits. But it's like saying no is easy, because by saying no, you're saying yes to everything else. By saying yes, you're saying no to everything else. So this opportunity for growth, if you say yes to it, what are you maybe saying no to that could otherwise come across your plate? So I don't have three things, but that would be my one question for them. And if they're okay with that opportunity cost of missing out on other things, because this seems like a good idea, then start trying it, right? So that, I don't know, that came to me at some point during during this. Yeah. So anyway.
Matt, did you have anything else?
Sorry, no, I was jotting down what he said. I liked it.
Was it Atomic? What'd you say?
Atomic Habits. It's a really good book.
Okay.
Recommend it to everybody. Yeah.
Okay.
The last one was just to keep, like, everyone had to keep coming up with new ideas, right? It all kind of went hand in hand, but everyone was forced to come up with new ideas and new ways to do business, whether it was new products and services or new ways of delivering those things. Businesses had to keep coming up with new ways to do it. Restaurants were one of the ones that probably had to do that more than most. And so we saw like restaurants were suddenly having like food trucks and mobile whatever and whatever else, like new ways, new dishes, new smaller like,
And
and it was
doorstop delivery.
creative. And I've always thought that
Exactly.
like chefs and cooks and stuff were one of the more creative types of individuals, just because they would present these dishes and whatever else. And I was like, oh my gosh, they are so creative. I can't do it, but they're so creative. And now we saw a different iteration of that. And if they can capture that and keep pushing themselves to do that, even though maybe they feel the pressure of COVID start to release maybe at some point, hopefully, if they can keep doing that, the ones that do, I think, will be the ones that see continued success and growth, because they'll be the ones that keep innovating, coming up with different things, new and better ways to do whatever it is that they're doing. Whereas others, unfortunately, will probably slip back into like, okay, what's safe and comfortable and that sort of thing. So.
Okay. Anybody else want to jump in before we move on? Okay, well, we have about 15 minutes left, and I know we've talked about toxic employees and termination and some things like that, but one of the things I wanted Matt and Brian and Matt to talk about, like, is what do we do when it's the leader that is the toxic person? Because a lot of the restaurant industry, you can sit this one out, girl. You can sit this one out. Yeah. A lot of the restaurant culture is like toxicity is, I guess, unusually high. Because there's this huge personality, or there's it's very male driven, or, it's a sexually charged environment. And, there are a lot of different reasons, but I want to kind of talk about when the leader, when the owner, when the chef is the toxic person. Because not to get too touchy-feely, but part of owning a business or leading people is accountability. It's looking in the mirror and, especially, and Kate would agree with this, I think we'd all agree, at some point, if you have a toxic culture, I think one of you said it, you kind of got to look in the mirror and be like, wait, is it me? Right? There's an accountability piece to it. And I think, so I'd kind of like to talk about that. But before Matt, I want you to talk about that piece of it. I'd kind of like to hear from Brian, because I think you maybe have had these situations where maybe there's some kind of, the employees rise up and it comes out in chat rooms, or it comes out on Facebook, or, have you had any of those situations? If so, can you kind of talk us through what that looks like?
Yeah, I mean, you just added a huge piece on the end there. I'd say the first part, toxic leadership or leadership not living up to what they should be. That's almost always the case. I was dealing with a client problem the other day, and my father-in-law was like, "Have you ever seen The Prophet?" Like 9 times out of 10, it's the owner, right? Just get the owner out of it and put a few small things in place, and everything magically starts working. So I haven't seen much of The Prophet, but I'll take his word for it. My advice to leadership is almost always first, look in the mirror. Have you given them the training, resources, guidance, tools they need to be successful? If not, that's step one, right? And it's so easy for everybody to get lost in the weeds of the day-to-day. There's orders to fulfill, there's QuickBooks to do, there's so much going on. it's hard to take a step back and really realize the bigger picture. So I guess I'll transition now into when employees don't feel heard and they want to take matters into their own hands and post on Facebook or get groups together. It's normally because they haven't had an outlet, or they've thought their outlets weren't actually there for them or listening to them, or whatever else. Had a few rogue wild cards in the past, and there's nothing you can do about that. But for the most part, yeah, it's have you been listening? So don't know how much more props we can give to Kate here tonight, but from the things she's been saying, that's what we hope managers are doing. That's what we hope owners are doing. It's, do you actually listen to them? Do you listen to them as people? Do you understand that if somebody's having issues at work, 8 times out of 10, it has nothing to do with work. It's, their parents are sick, or they're in a fight with their spouse, or whatever else. So if you can have human to human conversations and realize, okay, this isn't about work at all.
Yeah.
That helps solve so many of the problems. If it is about work, I think it's just repeating a lot of things we've already said here today. So I don't know if I've answered your question, but I'll cede the floor here.
Can I also touch a little bit on that?
Yeah.
I think that there's always been this stigma for employers to not get involved in personal business for your employees, but I feel like that's the complete opposite. Whenever you just reach out and say, I'm here if you want to talk about it, I think you earn a lot of respect that way, rather than the stigma has always been just don't even involve yourself in the personal life, because it's those questions like the intrusive questions that really irk employees, like, why are you getting in my business? I don't want to talk about it. But just having your door open per se goes a long way.
Yeah.
Definitely matters how you do it, right? If you're trying to force information out of them,
Yeah.
that doesn't feel good to anybody. If you're
Yeah.
saying, I'm here to support you, and that's kind of a manager tool as well. If you're giving somebody like a performance improvement plan, add in, how can I help you, right? Let's just use an easy one, like you're coming to work late. I'll call you every morning, right? I'll make sure you're up and ready. I'm willing. Nobody really takes you up on that, but you're showing I'm willing to sacrifice some of my time for you because I do want you to be successful. This isn't the end of the world. We can get through it together. How can I help you do it?
Yeah. I've picked up ways to bring them to work before. I will do what it takes. Yeah.
And that's such a different approach than just like berating somebody and saying, tell me why you can't be here on time. Right?
Yeah.
Walls go up.
Yeah. I think there's somewhere between, having completely separate lives or really strong boundaries, where you don't discuss personal lives, to environments where there are no boundaries. And I think that's kind of what I was thinking about with this question, is in those situations where the leader, Matt, you're smiling because you know where I'm going, right? Where the leader does not have those boundaries, right? They're just, what I kind of want to hear about is accountability, right? Matt, can you speak to that? Just from a leadership standpoint, things like bring your whole self to work.
Yeah. So the example I give sometimes is, and it might sound like I'm going to take a little bit of a roundabout way to get there, but because I'm going to talk about people who aren't in leadership first, but just bear with me. So I'll say, okay, so when we get to the office, there's a version of us that drives up to the office or walks or bikes or what have you. And that's the normal us, the one that has baggage, or that is in a fight with our spouse, or that is going through depression, or just had an anxiety attack this morning, or is mad at our kid, or just has our kid mad at us, right? Has all the baggage, and is a mess, right? Like a normal person.
Right.
When we walk in the back door, there's a slightly more polished version of that we give to whoever it is that we see in the hallway, because that may or may not be our department, right? That's just someone. And then so there's now two versions of us, right? There's the one that was in the car, and then there's the hallway us. And then we get back to our department, and that's the most relaxed version of us that work gets to see. We're joking around and we're the most laid back, but that's three different versions of us that we've already had to do that day. Now, if our manager or boss comes, version number 4, right? Because usually we'll tighten it up a little bit and we'll be whatever. If a vice president or executive comes in, 5, version number 5, right? There's like multiple. That's exhausting when you think about it.
Yeah.
We can't even get one of us put together perfectly. I don't know why we'd want to, but it starts to become like this weird kind of thing. And if we mess up something during the day, I mean, our first inclination is to hurry up and try and get it put back together before anyone realizes we've screwed up, because that's what we've done since we have been little kids.
Right.
It's not to go to our manager, and say, I totally jacked this up. Check it out. This is my best one yet. Because we've never seen a manager do that. We've never seen a manager walk into our meeting and be like, guys, guess what? I just went up to the executive wing and was like, look what I did. I messed this up. It just doesn't happen. Because there's so many divisions of us. We have to put on the best version of us to show to everybody else. And that's just all we've ever known. Now, a different version of that is what we talked about earlier, actually builds trust. But we've not really ever done that. So when we talk about trying to be human with teams, or we talk about, well, what does toxic leadership look like, excuse me, it all kind of winds up in the same spot. There's some leader somewhere who can't look in the mirror and ask themselves hard questions and give honest answers and then do something about what they figured out when they looked in the mirror. So they put on something and put up walls and then go to work and act either tougher than they are, more powerful than they are, and the consequences roll down to everybody else, right? Because there's power dynamics, and the worst are probably the ENTJs. I would probably say that's the commander entrepreneurial type, if I recall.
Kate and Brian. Wait, are you both? Yeah.
No, I'm giving them a hard time because I knew that was their type. No, but that's what happens. Now, how we actually deal with that is going to be different. Because if it's an ENTJ that actually cares about and can listen to people and is okay in their skin and is a human being, you can just talk to them because they're in touch with their emotions, right? Can be.
Mm-hmm.
If they're not, if they don't listen, they can be extremely difficult. They can be. It's one of the blind spots. But they can also be one of the champions of their people if they will be that way. Like you hear from Kate, right? She champions her people.
Mm-hmm.
So we look
That's what makes you cry.
When we look at what accountability and showing up authentically means, it means it's a leader who
Right.
gets to work and thinks of themselves as one among many. You read Robert Greenleaf, father of modern servant leadership. He talks about the leader being one among many, first of many, right? He doesn't even call himself, he doesn't think of himself as above. He thinks of himself as first of these guys. But what a huge responsibility that leader feels to show up and be that person for them. What a huge responsibility that is. And then going out to them and being there and showing up and being vulnerable and saying, this is who I am. Here's the stuff I'm not great at, I could really use your help getting better at those things. And how can I help you guys? Where do you guys struggle? And how can I show up there in those spaces for you? And if you think about the people who have had an impact on your life, it's not the perfect people. You connect with people in their brokenness. You don't connect with people in their flawlessness. That's just not how it works, And
Right.
so those are the leaders that I think we aspire to be. I don't know if that's where you're going with it, Carmen, but that's kind of what you look at.
You said all my favorite things. Authentic vulnerability. You covered it all, man. That's why I was on the verge of tears there. But yeah, that's absolutely where I was going. And Brian, this one probably would be for you, but let's assume that someone at the top, a chef, an owner, or whatever, has really screwed up, can they recover, and how do they do that? Is it through shows of authentic vulnerability? Is it, what else? What else is there?
Yeah, just the easy questions here. Yeah, I mean, trust takes a long time to build, but I think you can always repair it. Hopefully, you haven't bombed it so terribly that it's unrepairable. It just might take a whole lot longer to rebuild that. I guess when I talk about anti-harassment, one of the reasons why people don't report harassment is they don't want to get somebody fired. And I like to tell my clients the punishment should fit the crime. Well, that should apply to everybody. So if the chef or the owner really screwed up, the punishment should fit what happened, right? So back to harassment, one inappropriate comment isn't going to get you fired. We're going to talk about it, but that's not going to be the end of the discussion here. So whatever in your example, the owner or the chef did, if the owner was really egregious, maybe they do need to step out and not be a part of it for some period of time. And then when they come back, they're going to need to reprove themselves. But that would be kind of an extreme example. I don't know, but yeah. Anyway, I guess I'll leave it there. And
yeah, well, I mean, it's taken some restaurants down, right? I mean, it's really, or people in big brands have had to step out, and so I think it's part of. There is a big accountability piece. Like, I think employees are getting together right now and speaking out about it. So we're seeing a lot more of it, right? So I think about the ripple effect of that, and whether or not, a restaurant or a brand can recover from that. And if authentic vulnerability and some of those things can help rebuild trust and repair the culture. I mean, that's kind of where I was going with that is with that in mind, I guess.
I think just showing that nobody's untouchable, because a lot of groups will be like, well, so-and-so would never get fired, right? They're in with the owner, or they are the owner, whatever it is. Showing that actions have consequences no matter who you are, that helps build trust with the rest of the team too. So, that'd be my final, I guess.
Okay. I like that. Okay, well, I think we're at time here. It's 7:30, and I don't know if there are any questions, or anybody has questions or comments. Megan, do we have time to hang around, or no? Let's see. Okay, well, seeing no questions, I just want to again say thank you to the panel. I think it was a great conversation. I hope you felt like it was as well. And I really appreciate you all being here and giving and sharing what you've shared. And I guess we'll look forward to doing the next one. Okay.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.